Hello and welcome to Bo's Fantasy Football Show, where Bo knows fantasy football. Let's get started. Today we're going to be previewing Austin's main league. I think you know the players, but just in case you don't, I'm going to run through them right now. So I'm pulling up our first graphic. We got here our list of teams and the owners on each team. There we go. So let's start the rundown with Walter's team. The Walter's Awesome Players. Well, Walter, what a name that is. If you condense it, if you abbreviate it, it's like WAP, W-A-P, which pretty much means you're calling your team a bunch of wet-ass pussies. Good one, Walter. Boom, roasted. All right, moving on to Tib's team. Tib is the Better Younglife team. Well, Tib, that is a very pressing issue right now, but I think you should be focused on some more important issues at the moment, which is your fantasy football team. They were atrocious last year. I say, do better, Tib. Boom, roasted. All right, moving on to Dyllan's team. Team McKay. Well, Dyllan recently added another player to his team with Caitlin. Congrats, Dyllan. What a great marriage you're going to have. But seriously, the name? Team Dyllan? Or Team McKay? Whatever it is. Real original, Dyllan. Real original. Boom, roasted. Alright, moving on to Norman effing Football. It's a little play on, what's her face? Oh, why is her name is blanking me? I know you're going to hate me for this, Austin, but I can't remember the name of... Oh, Lana Del Rey. There we go. It's Lana Del Rey's album, yeah. Norman effing Football. But have you seen the Norman Tigers play football? More like Norman effing sucks. They're terrible, for real. Boom, roasted. Alright, now we're moving on to Lakin's team. The hashtag Me3 movement. And Lakin, I gotta say, yikes. I'm even a little too afraid to roast you on that one. I mean, I don't want to touch that subject on here and say something I shouldn't. So, boom, roasted, Lakin. Alright, moving on to Trace, who is that one team. Yeah, you know that one team. That one team that sucks. Boom, roasted. Gotcha, Trace. You are seeing that one coming. Moving on to Ty. Ty's team is 4th and 20. Let's blaze. And Ty, I gotta be honest, man. I think you're a little too high during the draft. You got quite an interesting team, man. I mean, what were you thinking for real, man? You must have been way too over the clouds or whatever you want to call it. Boom, roasted. Moving on to Bo's team. Yep, that's me. The Fire Saga. Jaja ding dongs. What are you trying to say, Bo? That your dong is long? I mean, it is, but like, boom, roasted. Gotcha, Bo. Alright, moving on to David's team. David is how to play fantasy football. You know, that doesn't really sound like a team name to me. That sounds more like a Google search. Yeah, I think David was trying to type that in and say, how do I play fantasy football? Well, let me tell you, David, I'm going to show you this year how to play it. Just wait till you meet my team. We're going to roast you, and boom, roasted. All right, finally, the last member, but of course not least, the beloved Santiago. His team name is the China Jovid-19. It sounds like you're doing a play on Trump and Biden, and that's two crazy guys, Santi, and you're one crazy guy, and you named your team after two crazy guys, so that's like three crazy guys. Boom, roasted. I think that was my best one yet. All right, so moving on to more serious matters. Now we're going to preview the teams. We're going to break it down. by position group. We're going to start with quarterbacks, go to running backs, go to wide receivers, tight ends, and then finally the defense/special teams. We're going to preview it all. I'm going to show you my power rankings for each of these teams, and I'm also going to show you the tiers that they're on. You'll see when we pull up our first graphic of the evening. Here it is. So let me start also with a disclaimer. I don't really watch pro football that much, and so I really don't know what I'm talking about. So don't get offended when I rank your team 10th, because I don't know what the F I'm talking about, you know? I'm into other things, if you know what I mean. But okay, anyway, we're starting that out. This is what I'm talking about. If we look here, we got the quarterback rankings right there with our first graphic. We've got our tiers. You've got our rankings. So you got quarterback rankings in that first column, and then you got quarterback tier in that second column. So the tiers are color-coded. We got gold, which is tier 1. We got purple, which is a tier 2. We got green, tier 3 teams, and then orange, tier 4, and finally red, which means you're way at the bottom. You're a tier 5 program in the quarterback section. So starting out here, you can already see the rankings I've got listed, but we've also got number 1 in the group is Lakin with the hashtag Me3 movement. Lakin has got a solid quarterback room. I mean, he's got Lamar Jackson as his starting QB. He's going to be great, but even if he somehow gets injured, he's got an incredible backup in Matthew Stafford, which makes him a tier 1 team and the first overall ranked team in the quarterback group. And then if we move down to tier 5, the only team in tier 5, sorry Dyllan, I got to put you down there. You're 10th overall. Your only quarterback is Daniel Jones. That's a little risky. You don't even have a backup. Yikes. All right, moving on to the running backs. So here's the running backs. I know it's a little too wide to really fit this in the screen, but there you can see it there. If you can't tell, we got number 1 overall is Norman F. in football. He doesn't have one of the big dogs. He doesn't have like Ezekiel Elliott or, you know, Christian McCaffrey or one of those dudes, but he does have Joe Mixon. And not only does he have Joe Mixon, he's got a deep room with a lot of studs on it. I like that for you, Austin. I like it a lot. All right, moving on. Number 10 in this running back section. We got Lakin, actually. He was number 1 in QB, but number 10 in running backs. I don't even remember who is a running back on his team, and that's the problem. Actually, he does have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He might be pretty special, Lakin. You got a guy, but he's a big risk guy at the same time, you know. So overall, you still got a good group, but you're number 10 in our league. And then finally, we're moving over to wide receivers. Wide receivers on that first tier, the only team in the first tier, he was so far ahead in my eyes that he had to be on a tier by himself. Dyllan, he totally redeemed himself after being number 10 in the quarterbacks. He's number 1 in the wide receivers. He has a stud in Devontae Adams, and kind of like Austin with running backs, he's got a deep room of wide receivers. I mean, Dyllan is stacked there, so I think you're going to be pretty set there, Dyllan. Should be a good group to help you through the season. And then in tier 3 with a bunch of other teams, there's a lot of teams in tier 3, but Lakin is at the bottom yet again. I'm sorry to put you down there, Lakin. I just had to do it. I just don't think you had a standout there. Maybe I'm wrong, because I don't really know pro football. One of those guys could be a stud. Who knows? But I put you at 10, and my rankings are pretty official, so sorry, you're 10th. Moving on to our tight ends. Now we're moving on to tight ends. Let's see what we got with our second graphic. Thank you, Bill, for getting us that graphic. Really appreciate it. Here we go. Now we're talking. Oh, we're upside down. That was embarrassing. Wow. So for tight ends, in at number 1, you can see it there at the bottom. He's in a tier all by himself. He is the tight end king. It is Santiago Restrepo with the China Jovid-19s. Yeah, he's got George Kittle starting for him, and then he is the only person in the draft that drafted 3 tight ends. I think that's enough said. I think Santiago's got to be number 1 for you in the tight ends. And number 10, I was actually deciding between myself and Tyler Gatewood, but ultimately I had to go with Ty here at 10. Ty, man, you only got one tight end, and he's not a big name. I mean, I can say the same for myself. So, you're number 10 here. I'm right there with you. No, so don't worry about it. Don't sweat it, man. Don't sweat it. Okay. Moving on to our defense and special teams. It's our last little group. I threw in the kicker with the defense here because, they're special teams, right? And at number 10 on this list, we got Walter. Walter's number 10 because Walter, he even admitted it to me during the draft. He said, yeah, I don't even really care about kickers and defenses. I wait till my last 2 picks, my 15th and my 16th pick, to draft those teams. Well, it shows, Walter. You're number 10. You're number 10 in defense and special teams. Way to go. And number 1, though, is the special teams man himself, Lakin Hall. You'll notice a trend here on the rankings. Lakin is almost either first or 10th in all of my power ratings for the different position groups. Now, what's that about, Lakin? Come on, man. Stay consistent, right? Come on. Anyway, now we're moving on to the really fun part, and it is one of the final segments of this show. I hope you stick around for it. We're going to combine the power ratings into one single rating, and it's going to be our power rankings for the season. So how I did this, I can actually explain the methodology to you real fast. So I weighted the tiers factored into my power rankings at a rate of 67%, and then the actual numbered rankings factored into my power rankings 33%. In addition to that, running backs were rated with 35%. They had a 35% weight of importance, followed by wide receivers at 25% importance, quarterbacks at 20%, and then tight ends at 10%, and defense and kickers combined with 10% as well. So I combined those weights, and then I multiplied them by the rankings and the tiers, and I came up with these final power rankings, and here we go. There's a big surprise at the top. It even surprised me to see it. I didn't know if my eyes really believed it after the really abysmal performance last year by this guy. But in at number 1, we got Tib Stovall. We got the Stovall with Do Better Younglife. He is in a tier by himself. His rating was so high in my power rankings that he got tier 1 by himself. Way to go, Tib. Moving on, though, to tier 2 in the power ratings. Tier 2 is a little more loaded, and I would say these are the contenders. These aren't the favorites. Tib's the favorite, but these are the contenders in the league. We got Austin at 2. We got David at 3. We got Walter at 4, and Santiago just squeaking in at 5 right there. And then moving on to tier 3, I would say these are the long shots. They still got a shot at it, but they're the long shots. We got Ty moving in, ranked 6. We got Dyllan, ranked 7. We got Trace at 8, and we got Bo at number 9. And moving on now to the last and least tier and rank. We got Lakin coming in at number 10 overall and tier 4. Sorry to do it to you, Lakin. I love you, dog, but I don't love your team. I'm sorry. Don't hate me, but just prove me wrong, man. Prove me wrong. And now, finally, our last segment of the show. Thanks for sticking around with me this long. If you stuck around, just hit that like button, hit the subscribe, and we'll be back more this season. If you like this show, if you don't, well then don't worry about it. But if you do like it, please give this video a thumbs up, and I'll know to keep producing them, getting them out there, for my fans and for you coaches around the league. All right, moving on to our Week 1 previews. I'm just going to run through these games real fast and make some picks. We're going to call out some games and make some picks. So, in the first matchup, we got Bo with the Jaja Ding Dongs taking on Santiago with the China Joven 19s. And Santi is a 2.3 point favorite. And while I like Bo to cover the spread, I think it's going to be closer than the experts think. I think this is going to be like a 1 point game. It's going to be a nail biter. This might be the game of the week. But I'm taking Santiago still to win it in a really close one. Moving on to game 2, we got Austin up against Lakin. Lakin is a 5.3 point favorite, and I don't really know why ESPN put you. Didn't they see my rankings? Why did they put you as a 5.3 point favorite? I got Austin winning this game straight up as the underdog. So I'm calling it now. I'm calling my shots now. Next we got Ty versus Dyllan. And Dyllan comes in at a 2.4 point favorite. But I just don't feel good about going with Dyllan in the first week with with Daniel Jones starting for him. I'm going to have to call another upset, straight up upset. Ty wins it in a pretty close game, but enough room for comfort for Ty. Next up, we got David up against Trace. David, a 1.6 point favorite. And I'm calling another upset. I'm just calling them all. Because, one of them's got to hit, right? One of these upsets has got to hit. I'm calling Trace the outright upset. Trace gets it done over David. Next up, we got Tib, a 4.8 point favorite against Walter. And, I got to pick one favorite. I already picked Santi as a favorite, actually, but closer than the experts think. But in this one, I'm picking Tib straight up to cover the spread, to win in a blowout. Sorry to do it to you, Walter, on your bachelor weekend, but you got to be humbled a little bit, right? It can't be all butterflies and rainbows, but actually it can. I think it's going to be butterflies and rainbows for you when you marry Susie. I'm looking forward to it, Walter, but I'm not picking you this week. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm not picking you. So that'll do it for us in our first week of the show. Again, like and subscribe. This was Bo's Fantasy Football Show, where Bo knows fantasy football.